J.D. Rockefeller, king of oil. He'd be the first to tell you that he found no great lasting joy in his wealth. Oh, he enjoyed wheeling and dealing. He loved building an empire, but wealth itself did not bring him joy. Rather, it was a burden to him. In fact, he once said, "I've made many millions, but they have brought me no happiness." And truthfully, Rockefeller's contemporaries agreed with his sentiment. And they should know they're among the richest men to ever walk our planet, such as Cornelius Vanderbilt, the train magnate. He once stated flatly, "The care of $200 million is enough to kill anyone. There's no pleasure in it." Andrew Carnegie, man of steel, he once observed that millionaires seldom smile. And Henry Ford, the car czar, he once said in exasperation, "I was happier when doing a mechanic's job." Now, part of the problem with money, part of the reason it simply doesn't bring lasting joy is because it's temporary. When we die, we truly can't take it with us, which all begs the question, what does bring lasting joy? Today we're looking at 1 Corinthians chapter 4 as we continue in our whole story series of daily encouragements. 1 Corinthians is a letter that was written by the Apostle Paul about 2,000 years ago or so. And what I want to do as we look at chapter 4 is specifically focus on verse 5, which goes like this. "Therefore, judge nothing before the appointed time. Wait until the Lord comes. He will bring to light what is hidden in darkness and will expose the motives of the heart. At that time, each will receive their praise from God." One day, our Savior will return to judge the quick and the dead. He will judge all, and he will administer punishment and praise accordingly. And while it's certainly true that God grants us as believers salvation based on nothing except our trust in our Savior, Jesus Christ, at the same time, one day, once we are in heaven, the scriptures talk about how the praise we will receive there, the treasure we'll enjoy, is going to be based upon how faithfully we follow Jesus in this life. It's going to be based on how faithfully we served others and reflected his light into this world. As Jesus himself once said, "Do not store up for yourself treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourself treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." This will be praise that we receive in heaven. This will be treasure that will bring us joy. But unlike the temporary joy that money gives us today, praise from Jesus will bring lasting joy, joy that echoes and reverberates throughout eternity. Really, that's why it's so important that we are striving to faithfully follow our Savior today. As a Christ follower, every kind deed you do in his name will be honored and praised in heaven. It will be an eternal treasure. The Great Divorce is a classic work of fiction by C.S. Lewis, and it's a novel that's been described as a theological dream. The plot line of this book deals with the afterlife as an individual is presented with the reality of heaven. In the story, heaven is depicted as an idyllic, Eden-like paradise with crystal clear rivers and picturesque trees, a truly magnificent, beautiful land. And this individual, the main character, as he explores heaven for the very first time, he meets a host of amazing characters. And at one point, he is stunned when he sees a massive procession coming his way. First in the procession, he sees giant angels, but not just a few of them. There's a multitude of them, and they're glowing like emeralds, and they're all dancing in perfect unison. It takes his breath away. And then after the angels, he sees marching musicians playing enchanting melodies. And on either side of the musicians, march choirs made up of young men on one side and young women on the other side. And Lewis described the music and the singing from the choirs and from the musicians as being so beautiful that any who listened would never grow sick, never grow old. And then after all that, in this procession walked a solitary figure. It was a woman in whose honor all this was being done. A woman of amazing loveliness with a gentle face that Lewis described as being unbearably beautiful. And the main character in the story, who again, he's new to heaven, When he sees this astonishing procession and then this stunning woman, he guesses that she must certainly, she must be Mary, the mother of Jesus. Who else could be worthy of such spectacular honor and pageantry? But then he finds out it wasn't Mary after all. In fact, he finds out it was someone he'd never even heard of before, someone named Sarah Smith. And we're told that Sarah Smith, although a person of great importance in heaven, was a person who had lived a very modest life in relative obscurity on earth. But Sarah Smith was a woman who, in her earthly life, truly cared for others and blessed many through her generosity. She was a woman who over and over again demonstrated the love of Christ to those that she encountered, from her friends and family members to her co-workers and neighbors, to store clerks and bus drivers. And all of this generosity that she showed others, all the care and love that she showered on them in her earthly life, all of it together had brought Sarah Smith great renown, great honor, great praise, great reward in the next life. This story is an encouragement for us as followers of Jesus, not to shrink back, but to press on even in these unsteady times. To press on, knowing that even though we may, at least in the world's point of view, labor in obscurity, because we know that God sees all. He knows us. He knows our motives and our deeds, and one day he will reward every single act of love that we have ever shown to someone else. And that will be a reward that brings us amazing, breathtaking, everlasting, unending, eternal joy. I'm looking forward to heaven. I long for it. This world is not our home. When I was a kid and I knew that our family was going to be going to like Disney World in the spring, I remember looking forward to the trip, longing for it. I knew how much fun it was going to be. But interestingly to me, I found that in the months leading up to the trip, even as I did my chores and I kind of trudged through my homework for school, I found that I had this joy of just anticipating what was to come. This is the joy that heaven can give us today as we refuse to shrink back, as we press on, even in these difficult times. It's the lasting joy of anticipation. Which reminds me of another verse from 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 12. For now we see only a reflection in a mirror, then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known.